You're listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe of Torch in Houston, Texas. This is the Jewish Inspiration Podcast.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back. It is so wonderful to be here together to learn on this beautiful Monday evening here at the Torch Center. We're deeply grateful. I'm honored that we can learn more Torah tonight together. All right, we are beginning a new chapter here on page 759 in the Orchos Tzaddikim Ways of the Righteous in the Treasure for Life edition, chapter 25, gate number 25, the Gate of Slander. Lashon Hara, we know Lashon Hara is so dangerous. Lashon Hara is so important for us to be conscious of the words we use and to be careful not to talk negatively about another person. Lashon Hara, hu ha-mesaper b'gnus chafero af al pi she'omer emes. So many times when you tell someone, maybe you shouldn't speak Lashon Hara, you're saying speak Lashon Hara about another person. They're like, what are you talking about? It's true. No, Lashon Hara is when it's true. Lashon Hara is when it's true. Aval ha'omer sheker nikra Motzi Shem Ra. And the Torah teaches us that one who says something about someone else that isn't true, that's not Lashon Hara. That's actually Motzi Shem Ra. That is bringing forth an evil name. Aval ba Lashon Hara zeh sheyoshev ve'omer kach v'kach asaponi v'kach v'kach hoyu avosav v'kach v'kach shamati olav v'omer dvarim shel gnai olav akosov omer yachres Hashem kol sifsei chalokos lashon medaberes gedolos. So the verse has very harsh things to say about someone who talks about a person, talks about his ancestors, talks about his ways of the past. If someone does Teshuvah, someone repents, you're not allowed to bring up their history. You're not allowed, you remember back in the day when you were a thug? You remember back in the day, the guy already did Teshuvah, you're not allowed to bring that up. As the verse states in Psalms, let Hashem cut off all smooth-talking lips, the tongues that speak haughtily. Our sages of blessed memory said as follows, anyone who speaks slander, it is as if he denies God. It's a very, very strong thing. To deny God is a very serious sin. Shenemar, asher amru lilshonenu nagbir, sfasenu itanu, mi adon lanu. Our tongues we will prevail. Our lips are with us. Who is a master over us? And therefore our sages tell us that we consider him one who denies God. You're doing a terrible harm to your fellow friend, to your fellow man. So what do you do when you speak negatively about, when you speak slanderously about another person? You know what you're actually doing? You're damaging your fellow. You're hurting them both as a human, but also the potential for other people to like them, for other people to do business. If someone comes over to you and says, you know that guy that you're working for? Do you know that guy that you're planning on starting your business with? You know that guy? And they tell you something. And now you're like second guessing. You're going to rethink whether or not this partnership is a good idea. Based on what? Based on the slander that you heard from someone else. The craziest thing is that the person who speaks Lashon Hara has no benefit. Definitely, one who has the habit of speaking slanderously about others removes himself from the yoke of heaven, because he's a sinner without pleasure. There's one thing if someone sins and they get a pleasure out of it. But what's the pleasure out of speaking negatively about somebody else? You're just putting another person down. You're not getting elevated from it. And that's the psychological challenge when someone speaks slander, is that they're really not benefiting. It may help your self-esteem for a quick moment because you feel like you're better than them. Look at them, they're so low, and you say the negative things about them, but really it doesn't make you any better. He says it's even worse to speak Lashon Hara than to be a thief or an adulterer. Shehem rod from achar nasam. Okay, they're running after their pleasures. This one's the pleasure with money. This one is physical pleasures. Okay, but what's the pleasure of speaking Lashon Hara? There's no removal of the yoke of heaven comparable to that of Lashon Hara. And even more sages of blessed memory said, Shkula Lashon Hara keneged avodah zarah v'gilui arayis v'shvichas damim. That the speaking of slander is equivalent to all three of the cardinal sins, that of idol worship, illicit relations, and spilling of blood, of murder. These are three cardinal sins. You're telling me the Lashon Hara is that severe? We know that each one of them, each one of those sins, those three cardinal sins, it's better to get a bullet to the head than to commit one of those sins. Ve'amru chamur avodah zarah shekol amode ba kekofer b'chol haTorah kula. Ve'amru mumar l'avodah zarah having mumar l'chol haTorah kula. We see that in each of these, whether it be someone who denies God and serves idolatry, whether it be someone who is a murderer, each of them, it says that it's worse than committing the sins against the entire Torah. And you're saying that Lashon Hara is even worse than that. He says, let's give a reason for this. He says it's a different kind of sin when someone speaks slander against another person. He says 10 times or more daily he humiliates and shames people, aside from harming the object of his slander, the subject of his slander. Even a simple avera, kishadam over oleo, kama pomim hinasis kveda. Ki afilu seor echot shehu rach v'chalash meod, kishe tikabetz harbes aros yachod, tasa mehem chevel chazak. He says when someone sins one time, so it's one sin. You sin another time, and another. It's like here. One here is easy to pull out, but 10 years very difficult to pull out. It becomes a big bunch. He says someone who sins with the sin of slander is a very severe sin. In fact, the Chafetz Chaim, in his magnificent work on Shmir Salashon, why he was named the Chafetz Chaim is because of the book he wrote called Chafetz Chaim, taken from the verse in Psalms where King David says, "Mi ha'isha Chafetz Chaim ohev yamin liros tov." Who is the man who desires life? Chafetz Chaim desires life. Ohev yamin lirot tov, loves days of seeing good in every person, seeing the positive of every person. Nitzor lashon chamira usfasecha medaber bimra. Withhold your tongue, your lips from speaking evil, and your tongue from speaking negatively. This is a very, very powerful thing. Lashon Hara, we say, well, it's not such a big deal. There was a one of our students here at Torch once told me that she gets together with all of her friends. That get together for coffee. That sit at Starbucks. I said, and what was what transpired? She says, all we did was speak Lashon Hara. All we did. We would talk about this. Did you see what she was wearing to synagogue this week? Oh my goodness. And they would talk about the husbands, and talk about the wives, and talk about the children, and talk about their house, and about their cars, and talk about their clothes, and talking about other people for hours. I said, but this happened, this conversation transpired after we spoke about the laws of slander and how terrible the laws of Lashon Hara, how terrible of a deed this is. She said, what am I supposed to do? This is the only thing we do when we get together. We sip on our lattes and we talk about other people. Well, this is a terrible thing. A person should avoid at all cost getting into conversation about other people. So this concludes day number 135.
You've been listening to Rabbi Aryeh Wolbe on a podcast produced by Torch, the Torah Outreach Resource Center of Houston. Please help sponsor an episode so we can continue to produce more quality Jewish content for our listeners around the globe. Please visit torchweb.org to donate and partner with us on this incredible endeavor.